It happened on a Tuesday. Rain painted the windshield in dizzying streaks, and the night was thick with fog. My hands were trembling on the steering wheel. Not from fear, but from what she said just moments earlier. "Dave," Josephine whispered, barely audible over the hum of the storm. "If I go back to Charles, it's because it's easier, not because I love him more." She wasn't crying. Her voice was calm. Too calm. The kind of calm that comes before something shatters. I had pulled over to the side of the road, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, headlights slicing through the mist like twin ghosts. We were supposed to be heading back. She had promised him she'd be home by midnight. But midnight was hours ago. And she hadn't answered a single one of his calls. I looked at her. At the girl I had loved since we were kids. The one I had kissed under the oak tree, and lost, and somehow found again. "Then why are you still thinking about going back?" I asked. She turned her head slowly to me. "Because I'm scared," she said. "Because if I choose you, everything changes." A pause. "And I don't know what we become once the dream is real." I didn't answer. Couldn't. Then she leaned over, and kissed me. It wasn't soft. It wasn't tentative. It was the kind of kiss that burns a hole in the timeline. The kind you don't come back from. And that's when the headlights hit us. A roar of steel and light. Glass exploding. Metal folding in. Time tore in half. I saw her face, one last time. Frozen. Eyes wide. Hand reaching for mine. Then darkness. And silence. And the unbearable weight of everything that should have been. Before the kiss under the oak tree. Before the silence, the wreckage, and the roads we never meant to take. There was just her. Josephine. We met when we were 5. She moved into the blue house across the street with a sunflower in one hand and a juice box in the other. She wore yellow rain boots in the middle of summer. And told me she was going to be an astronaut. I told her I wanted to be invisible. She said, "That's sad," and made me promise I'd never disappear around her. I never did. From that day on, we were inseparable. School, bike rides, scraped knees, birthday parties. Her mom used to pack me an extra sandwich in her lunchbox. My dad called her our honorary daughter. We built blanket forts and made up secret handshakes. We thought the world was just our street, and that it would always stay that way. But childhood has a sneaky way of growing up. By the time we were 12, something had shifted. She started noticing the sky more. I started noticing her. And by 14, people had already begun to whisper. "You two are cute together. Is she your girlfriend?" We laughed it off. Rolled our eyes. But our hands would linger longer. Our fights got softer. And the spaces between us started to shrink. One afternoon, we were 15, she told me she had a dream where we were married. In a forest. Just the two of us and a dog named Button. I teased her about it for weeks, but secretly, I held on to that image like it was a memory. And then came that summer. The one that changed everything. We were 16. It was July. The air heavy with heat and teenage longing. We were lying under the oak tree, the same one that had watched us grow up, when she turned to me and said, "Do you ever think we're just meant to be?" I didn't answer. Instead, I leaned in, and kissed her. The world didn't spin. It stopped. For just 1 second. Everything froze in that moment, the wind, the birds, the space between us. She smiled after. Like she'd been waiting all this time for me to be brave. After that, it wasn't a question anymore. We were in love. The kind of love that doesn't need a label. That shows up in shared earbuds, exchanged glances, and fingers brushed in passing. But love isn't always enough. Because right when everything felt perfect, life stepped in and turned the page. The call came on a Sunday. Josephine's dad had just gotten off the phone with his boss. A promotion. A transfer. New city. New chapter. And just like that, we had 14 days left. 14 days to untangle everything we'd tied together over the years. 14 days to pretend that goodbye wasn't going to break us. I remember the way her face fell when she told me. Like someone had turned off all the lights inside her. I thought we had more time, she whispered. So did I. Those 2 weeks felt like a fever dream. We did everything and nothing all at once. We watched our favorite movies on the floor of my bedroom. We danced in the rain. We made promises we were too young to understand, and too in love to break. The last night, we sat under the oak tree again. Same spot. Same stars. But everything felt different. Her head rested on my shoulder. My fingers laced with hers. Neither of us said what we were really thinking. Because if we said goodbye out loud, it would become real. And we weren't ready for real. So instead, we carved our initials into the bark of that tree. Just a small, crooked J+D inside a heart. She looked at it, smiled, then turned to me. Do you think we'll find our way back? I wanted to say yes. But I just nodded. Because I didn't trust my voice not to crack. The next morning, her family car was packed. Her mom waved. Her dad gave me a long look. And Josephine, she hugged me like it was the last time we'd ever touch. Maybe some part of her already knew it was. She didn't look back when the car pulled away. I did. I watched until her tail lights disappeared over the hill. And then I ran. To the oak tree. I stood under it, hands in fists, heart caving in on itself. And I whispered the words I couldn't say to her face. I love you. Please come back. The wind answered me. But she never did. Not for a long, long time. The first few weeks after she left felt like walking through fog. Everything looked the same, my street, our school, the oak tree, but nothing felt the same. She was everywhere and nowhere at once. Her laughter still echoed in the hallways. Her handwriting was still in the margins of my notebooks. Her shampoo scent still clung faintly to the hoodie she forgot at my place. People told me I'd get over it. She's just a girl, they said. But Josephine was never just anything. I stopped going to the oak tree. Stopped listening to our favorite songs. I threw myself into school, sports, anything that made the hours go faster. I dated, even smiled sometimes, but it was never real. Not really. Every girl I met felt like a poor imitation of her. Too loud, too cold, too polished, or worse, too much like her in all the wrong ways. But I never told anyone that. Not even my best friend, Liam. He once found me in the music room after school, just sitting there, staring at the piano like it held answers. I couldn't play. Never learned. But Josephine had. And she'd made that old upright come alive every Thursday after class. You ever gonna talk about her? He asked. I shook my head. Because I was scared that if I started, I wouldn't be able to stop. Time kept moving. I graduated. Started college in a different town. New people, new routines. I thought maybe, just maybe, the weight would lift. But some nights, it hit me out of nowhere. A scent in a hallway. A song in a coffee shop. A laugh that sounded almost like hers. And I'd freeze. Because grief isn't loud. It's quiet. Subtle. It slips into your bones and makes a home there. I never reached out. Never texted. Never looked her up. I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But I told myself if she wanted me in her life, she'd come back. So I waited. And waited. Until one day, years later, the waiting ended. Not with a phone call. Not with a message. But with a glance. Across a crowded conference room, in a city we'd both sworn we'd never live in. And there she was. Josephine. Looking right at me. Like time had never passed at all. There she was. Standing by the refreshments table, talking to someone in a navy blue blazer, probably a manager, maybe a speaker. I didn't care. Because all I could see was her. Josephine. Her hair was a little shorter than I remembered, curled gently at the ends. She was wearing a simple green dress, the same shade as the leaves of that oak tree we once claimed as our own. She looked older. Wiser. But her eyes? Still the same. Still the color of summer storms and long-forgotten dreams. She hadn't seen me yet. And for a moment, I considered walking away. Leaving the room. Pretending like the universe hadn't just thrown a live wire at my feet. But I couldn't move. Then, she turned. Our eyes met. And just like that, every buried feeling clawed its way back to the surface. Her lips parted slightly. Her expression flickered, shock, recognition, disbelief. And something else. Something soft. Dave. She said, as if my name itself had weight. I nodded. Couldn't speak. My mouth felt full of ghosts. She stepped closer, cautiously. Like I might vanish if she moved too fast. I didn't think I'd ever see you again, she whispered. Yeah, I finally managed. Me neither. And then she smiled. That same crooked, heart-pulling smile that once made me believe in forever. We stepped aside, away from the noise of the room. Found a quiet corner. The small talk came first. How are you? Where do you live now? What do you do? We danced around the real questions. Avoided landmines with careful words. But the air between us buzzed with unspoken things. And then, out of nowhere, she said, I still think about the oak tree sometimes. I looked at her. Hard. You still remember? Her gaze dropped. I never forgot. Silence fell between us. But it wasn't awkward. It was thick. Heavy with everything unsaid. Then came the words that changed everything again. I'm engaged, she said quietly. His name's Charles. I felt the floor shift beneath me. Is he good to you? I asked, voice tighter than I intended. She nodded. He's stable. Kind. Predictable. But you hesitated. Her eyes snapped up to mine. I held her gaze. And in that moment, I knew. She was standing in front of the life she had built, while staring at the life she still wanted. And that? That was more dangerous than any goodbye. We told ourselves it was innocent. Just two old friends catching up. But from the moment she said she still thought about the oak tree, I knew. This wasn't just nostalgia. This was unfinished. The conference ended, but we didn't. We exchanged numbers, casually, too casually. Like it didn't mean anything. She texted me the next morning. Coffee? I said yes, knowing full well I shouldn't. We met at a small cafe on the corner of 5th and Ash. It was raining again, because of course it was. It always seemed to rain when things were about to change between us. She walked in wearing a gray coat, her hair still damp at the ends. She looked tired. Not just from the weather, but from the weight of pretending. We ordered our drinks, sat by the window. At first, it was light. Laughter. Catching up. But the undercurrent was there. She stirred her coffee slowly, eyes fixed on the swirl of cream and caffeine. Charles doesn't know I'm here, she said. I looked at her. Would he be upset? She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, he trusts me. That's what makes this worse. I nodded. Bit the inside of my cheek. Because I wasn't innocent either. Why did you come? I asked. She looked up. Met my gaze dead on. Because I saw you, and it felt like something woke up. Like a part of me I buried years ago sat up and started breathing again. My heart pounded so loud I was sure she could hear it. I never stopped loving you, Dave, she whispered. I just forced myself to forget. There it was. The truth. Dropped between us like a lit match. I should have said something wise. Something measured. Instead, I reached across the table and took her hand. I didn't forget. Not once. The pause that followed was the kind that cracks the foundation of everything. Because we knew. We were too far in. Too tangled in history to be just friends. And too haunted by what-ifs to walk away clean. We sat in silence, fingers laced, watching the rain trail down the window like tear tracks on glass. And in that quiet, I knew. This was the beginning of the undoing. Of her life. Of mine. Of everything we thought we had neatly packed away. We started seeing each other once a week. At first, it was safe. Public places. Midday coffees. That fine line where affection could still be disguised as nostalgia. But over time, the spaces between those meetings grew heavier. So did the silence after. I'd wake up with her texts already on my phone. Thinking about you. Had a dream last night. We were back at the oak tree. I don't know what I'm doing. Neither did I. We never touched. Not then. But the things we said with our eyes, those were the real betrayals. One evening, we met at a bookstore. She was wearing that same green shade again, like it had become some kind of unspoken signal between us. We wandered the aisles in quiet conversation. Fingers brushing spines. Voices low. Then, in a corner by the poetry section, she stopped. I read this to myself the night before we moved, she said, pulling a worn book from the shelf. It was the only thing that made me feel like I wasn't losing you. She opened the book, thumbed through the pages until she found the one. And then, she read it out loud. Just a few lines. About love and distance and waiting. But I didn't hear the poem. All I heard was her. The tremble in her voice. The way she couldn't meet my eyes. When she finished, she shut the book gently, and turned to me. I'm scared, she whispered. Of what? That I won't be able to go back. If I go any further with you. I took a slow step toward her. You already haven't gone back. The air between us cracked, tight, electric. Then her phone rang. Loud. Jarring. She fumbled to silence it. Glanced at the screen. Charles. Her fiancé. She stepped away quickly. Back into reality. I should go, she said, eyes flickering. I nodded. But neither of us moved. And that's when she said it. Sometimes I wish I had never seen you again. Ouch. But then she added, softer, broken. Because I don't know how to unfeel you. She walked out. Left me standing there between the fiction shelves and 100 books we'd never write together. And for the first time since we reconnected, I knew. We weren't drifting anymore. We were falling. Fast. Reckless. And something had to give. She started canceling. First it was a work meeting ran long. Then it was, I'm just tired today. And finally, no excuse at all. Just silence. For 4 days. No calls. No texts. And every hour that passed felt like 1,000 needles under my skin. When she finally showed up again, it wasn't at a cafe or bookstore. She came to my apartment. Soaked from the rain, shaking, mascara smudged just enough to betray she'd been crying. I opened the door, breath caught in my chest. "I can't do this anymore," she said, voice barely above a whisper. And I believed her, because she looked like someone who'd been at war with herself for weeks. She walked inside without asking. Dropped her bag, curled into the corner of my couch like a child who'd lost her way home. "I tried to tell him," she said. "Not everything, but something. That I needed space. That I wasn't sure." "And?" I asked. She stared at the wall. "He asked if it was about someone else." My stomach clenched. I didn't want to be someone else. I wanted to be the one. "What did you say?" She didn't answer. But her silence screamed. "He's not stupid," she finally said. "He knows something's wrong." I haven't looked at him the same in weeks. Haven't touched him like before. I flinch when he talks about the future. Her voice cracked. "And it's not his fault." Then she looked at me, really looked at me, and asked, "What are we doing?" It wasn't rhetorical. She needed an answer. But I didn't have one. Because every word in my mouth tasted like betrayal. We were no longer just two people trying to remember something beautiful. We were building something, behind someone else's back. And it was real. It wasn't some cheap thrill or emotional fling. It was us. All over again. I reached out. Took her hand. "Whatever this is," I said, "we didn't plan it. But that doesn't mean it's not worth figuring out." She nodded, eyes glassy. But the air had shifted. There was a scent to suspicion now. A weight in the room. A shadow growing. Charles knew something. And the walls we were hiding behind? They were starting to crack. The message came at 2:17 a.m. Just 6 words. "We need to talk. Tomorrow morning." It was from Charles. Josephine showed me the screen with shaking hands. She'd been staying over again. Not every night, but often enough that it was becoming obvious. Her phone always face down. Her voice quieter when she answered his calls. Her excuses. Running thin. I could see the storm building behind her eyes. "I think he knows," she said. I didn't ask how. Didn't need to. Guilt leaves fingerprints. She had started flinching at kindness. Pulling away when Charles said, "I missed you." Avoiding mirrors. Dodging questions. And still, she didn't stop seeing me. Because some gravitational pull between us had taken over. Something too old, too deep to untangle now. We lay in silence for hours that night. Not touching. Not talking. Just two hearts beating too loud in the dark. In the morning, she left early. No kiss goodbye. Just a soft, tired glance over her shoulder, and a door that clicked shut like a closing chapter. I didn't hear from her all day. Then came the second message, around sunset. This time, from her. He asked if there's someone else. I couldn't lie. Not anymore. My chest tightened. I told him about us. Not everything, but enough. I told him I didn't know what I wanted anymore. I stared at those words for a long time. It felt like a victory, and a funeral. Hours passed. I didn't know if she'd come back. If he'd kicked her out. If she was crying somewhere, or fighting for us. Then came the third message. He's gone to stay with his brother. He said I need time to think. Alone. Alone. That word rang like a warning bell. Not with him. Not with me. Just, alone. And maybe that was fair. But something in my gut twisted anyway. I knew Charles wouldn't just walk away. No one does. Not when they feel betrayed. Especially not someone like him, someone used to being chosen. I didn't know it yet. But that message, that space, it was the beginning of the end. And something darker was coming next. I didn't hear from her for 2 days. No messages. No calls. Not even the usual, thinking of you, that had become our lifeline. The silence gnawed at me. I walked around with my phone in my hand, refreshing apps that never changed. Checking messages that weren't there. Rereading old ones like they could offer clues. I told myself she needed space. But part of me wondered if she'd already made her choice. On the 3rd day, she showed up. No warning. No knock. Just a soft tap on the door, like she was scared of being turned away. She looked worn. Not just tired. Hollowed out. Eyes rimmed red. Shoulders hunched. Hair pulled back like she hadn't even looked in the mirror. "Hey," she said. Barely. I opened the door and stepped aside without a word. She walked in and stood in the middle of the room like she didn't know what to do next. Then, quietly. "He's not the man I thought he was." I froze. "What do you mean?" She sat down, fingers trembling in her lap. "When I told him. When I was honest, he changed. His voice. His eyes. The way he looked at me." She swallowed hard. It wasn't rage. Not at first. It was calculation. Like he was trying to figure out how to hurt me without touching me. Goosebumps crawled up my arms. "He said things," she went on. "Things no one else could have known. About you. Your job. Your apartment. Where your parents live." My blood ran cold. "What?" "I didn't tell him anything," she whispered. "But he knows. Dave. I think he's been watching us." The room felt suddenly smaller. The air too sharp. "Have you seen him since?" She shook her head. "But I know he's not gone. He's waiting. Planning. I can feel it." I wanted to say it would be okay. That we'd figure it out. But my mouth was dry. My stomach twisted. Because deep down, I knew. We had crossed a line. And some people don't just let go. They pull. Hard. Until something, or someone, snaps. The night after she told me. I didn't sleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window, every passing car making my pulse jump. Every creak in the hallway sounded like a footstep. Every silence. A threat. Josephine slept curled up on my couch, her breathing shallow and uneven. She'd left her phone turned off. Said she couldn't handle one more unknown number lighting up her screen. I wanted to believe she was just being paranoid. That maybe guilt had twisted her sense of reality. But around 2:30 a.m., someone knocked on the door. Not a loud knock. Not desperate. Just 3 slow taps. Measured. Intentional. I froze. Didn't move. Didn't breathe. Another knock. 3 again. I crept to the peephole, but the hallway was empty. Just a flickering overhead light, and a silence that screamed. When I opened the door, there was nothing. No one. Not even footsteps. But taped to the door was a photo. An old one. Of me and Josephine. Taken years ago under the oak tree. A moment we never posted. One we thought only we had. And written across it, in red ink, neat, sharp letters. She was yours. Once. My fingers went cold. I slammed the door shut. Josephine was standing behind me now, barefoot, silent. She saw the photo. Didn't speak. She didn't have to. I grabbed my keys, shoved the photo in a drawer. We need to go, I said. Now. She nodded. We packed bags in under 5 minutes. No plan. No destination. Just the overwhelming need to not be here. As we drove into the dark, city lights shrinking behind us, Josephine turned to me. What if this never ends? I glanced at her. At the fear in her eyes. At the way she still reached for my hand despite it. Then we don't stop running, I said. Until we find somewhere he can't follow. But deep down, I knew. Some ghosts don't chase you. They wait. And the worst ones, wait until you stop. We drove for hours. No direction. Just distance. Gas stations. Motels. Fast food wrappers crumpled on the dashboard. It all blurred into one long stretch of escape. But you can't outrun what lives in your blood. Not when it's watching you from the rearview mirror. By day 3, Josephine started to shake. She tried to hide it, but I saw the cracks. The twitch of her fingers. The way she'd startle at shadows. The way her voice would trail off mid-sentence, like she was listening for something, or someone. I kept telling her we were safe. But I was lying. Because even then, I could feel it. That we were on borrowed time. On the 5th night, we found a cabin upstate. Off the map. Quiet. Surrounded by trees and stillness. She said it felt like breathing for the first time. We lit a fire. Sat on the floor, knees touching. No phones. No clocks. Just us. It almost felt normal. She laughed that night, really laughed, for the first time in weeks. And for one impossible second, I believed we'd made it. But peace, in our story, was a false bottom. Because sometime after midnight, I woke to the sound of glass shattering. A single, sharp crash. I shot up. Josephine was already awake, eyes wide, mouth parted in silent terror. We didn't move. Then, the front door creaked. Once. Twice. Then silence. I grabbed the fire poker, crept toward the hallway. No flashlight. No weapon. Just shaking bones and a love I wasn't ready to lose. And then. He stepped into the light. Charles. But not the Charles Josephine had described. This man. He wasn't calm. Or controlled. His eyes burned. Red-rimmed. Wild. He didn't yell. Didn't lunge. He just looked at her. You ran, he said. After everything. Josephine stepped in front of me. Charles, please, it wasn't supposed to be like this. He tilted his head. Wasn't it? Then, he pulled something from his coat pocket. A gun. Small. Black. Steady. Pointed at me. My heart stopped. Charles, she said, voice cracking. I gave you everything, he said, to her. Not to me. And you gave it to him. The moment froze. No sound. No air. I stepped forward instinctively. He flinched. Raised the gun higher. And in that split second, Josephine moved. A blur between us. A scream. A flash. And then. Silence. She fell. Hard. Into my arms. Blood. Warm. Spreading. Her eyes found mine. And in the softest breath I've ever heard, she said. I chose you. Then. Nothing. Charles dropped the gun. Just stood there. Empty. I don't remember what happened after. The police. The sirens. The shouting. All I remember is the way she felt as she slipped away. Light. Like a wish that had never come true. They buried her 2 weeks later. Closed casket. Small crowd. Too quiet. I didn't speak. Didn't cry. I just stood under the old oak tree back home, where we once carved our names. J plus D. Still there. Still bleeding. I visit it every year. And I whisper the words I never got to say when it would have mattered. I would have chosen you too. Every time.